Welcome, brothers and sisters. Hey, today I came across an article on the internet that I thought was a little interesting, and I wanted to talk about it. So let's do it. This was on Meta's website. It looks like Mark Zuckerberg has made a statement, and the title is "More Speech and Fewer Mistakes." So it looks like Facebook is finally owning up to the censorship it's been doing for some time, and which I, personally don't like. Little non-disclosure. I used to like Facebook and I used to post on it a lot, but I got tired of the fact checking. I would post jokes and I'd get notes on them. I posted one thing about 2 months ago that was critical of the British police force and really compared them to Nazis in a picture. And so it was just really reposting a meme that wasn't very flattering, but it was really all around the British throwing people in jail or investigating non-crimes that were really in America would be free speech, and they're not crimes. Why are you even investigating them? Or even throwing people in jail like Tommy Robinson, basically for abusing their quote unquote hate speech laws. And in America, everything the man has said would not be illegal, and that's why I think Elon Musk has recently weighed in and said, "Hey, he should be freed," because he's in jail right now for 18 months for contempt of court for basically exercising what Americans would call free speech around dislike of the numbers and types of migrants coming into the country. And you may agree or disagree with that speech, but it shouldn't be illegal, and he shouldn't be thrown in jail for it. So I'm not fully up to date on what Elon Musk has said about that, but I do think probably Tommy Robinson should not be in jail. Well, anyway, because I posted this meme, Facebook deleted my post within about 5 minutes and sent me a note that I could appeal. I appealed. Their automated appeal denied. And then there was an appeal body that could go out and rule on my appeal on whether it was fair or not. And that's still in process 2 months later. So their whole process is broken around speech. So let's see what Mark Zuckerberg has to say about this. This is about a 5-minute clip.
Hey everyone, I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote non-stop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed, so we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive. Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
All right, so there you have it. From Mark Zuckerberg himself, more speech and fewer mistakes. The takeaways, according to Joe Kaplan, the Chief Global Affairs Officer at Facebook, starting in the US, we are ending our third-party fact-checking program and moving to a community notes model. I think that's a positive step. Definitely, I think it works on Twitter. It's much better having other users educate and put their opinions out there than the government or the Facebook approved one. And as he said, his independent fact checkers were not really independent. They were biased liberals who definitely used those tools to squash conservative speech or other speech they didn't like around COVID or such. And yeah, the federal government pushed for them to do it. Now that was part of it. The Biden administration forced Facebook to shut down voices, both political and ones that were talking about COVID that they didn't like. We allow more speech by lifting restrictions on such topics that are part of mainstream discourse and focusing on our enforcement on illegal and high severity violations. So this is probably related to, they pretty much closed down any speech related to LGBTQ, to migration, critical of the anti-speech censorship movement, such as when I said what I said about the British government censoring speech. We will take a more personalized approach to political contents so that people who want to see more of it can in their feeds. Yes, I'm sure that I'd been throttled as well. So again, all of this brought me to the decision to stop using Facebook. I think this is a positive step and it might be better, but I'm not sure I'm really going to come back. I'd rather come on here and just talk about things, and maybe Google is going to throttle me too, but at least they don't seem to be yet. And so I think again, this is a positive step. My big problem with Facebook has always been this: they hide behind laws where they say that they're a platform, so people can say whatever they like, and they're not responsible for the content. And I'm actually fine with that. And so people shouldn't be able to sue them for the content that's out there. I fully agree with that, and actually, I do actually think Facebook is a private organization. If they want certain speech not on their platform, that's fine. And then it's up to me if because they've decided to not allow my conservative speech, I've chosen to do that speech somewhere else. I think in general that is fine. My problem with it is that they are actually censoring and taking editorial control about what speech is allowed on their platform. And so because they're doing that, they're no longer independent like they said they were, and so they shouldn't have protections as just a platform. They should now be seen as sort of a news organization or a publisher with editorial control because they're censoring. And so, people should be able to sue them for defamation or other things now that they're doing that. So it's really a two-headed coin here. They can't have it both ways. They can't say they're a platform and they're independent, and they can't at the same time censor speech they or the government doesn't like. But again, I don't know if I'm going to come back, but maybe. I do think Twitter is a better place for free speech. I think Blue Sky is also an option if you're very liberal. Problem is, conservative voices are shut down over there, definitely, and and so that's going to be a problem for their growth. Conservatives won't go over there, and I do believe all the things going on in Brazil and the UK is authoritarian governments taking advantage of these anti-free speech laws, these hate speech laws, and shutting down speech that they don't like. And it's not right. And so I'm glad that Facebook is taking, this approach now. I think Trump has a lot to do with it. Trump himself was kicked off of Facebook and censored on Facebook. And so he seems like he takes this seriously, and I think Facebook has realized that Trump is not going to put up with the censorship any longer the way it's been, and that if they continue, that now the full force of the U.S. government's going to come after them. So that's why they're doing it. And then, honestly, I think the move to Texas is a good move for their moderation crowd, because, yeah, I actually think Zuckerberg and the other top executives, probably 9 out of 10 of them, don't actually care at all about free speech, and they don't care about people talking about conservative or liberal politics on their platform. They just want to make money. They're businessmen. The problem is they've got pressure from their own employees or they have pressure from governments to censor speech. And then they hire people to do it. And the people they hire do tend to be California big city liberals. And everyone has a bias. So they use those tools to shut down conservative speech. So moving it to Texas, I think, is a positive step. But I don't want it to go the other way and they shut down liberal speech. So because even conservatives have biases too. So really, I like the whole community notes. Let's minimize the moderation completely. And yes, let's fight the government's efforts to censor whenever we can, like in Brazil, in the UK, and let's get back to being able to say what you please. Now, I'm not for advocating harm to other people, but just saying things like, hey, I don't agree that all these migrants should be in our country. That's a perfectly valid opinion. Why can't you say that? Or just saying, if you're Joe Rogan, that, hey, I took ivermectin and for me it was good. What's wrong with that? Why shut that down? So there's lots of things that normal people talk about that are not illegal, but they may not fall into the mainstream consensus, but people that don't fall into the mainstream consensus need a voice too. Again, as long as they're not advocating something illegal, I am okay with moderating illegal speech. So I think that that's okay. But again, that's also a slippery slope. What is illegal? So advocating terrorism, that should be illegal. Advocating physical harm to someone else, that should be illegal. Just saying you don't like something or the government should do something else different, even if it touches a protected class like migrants because they're from another country, it doesn't mean it's racist. It doesn't mean it's hate. It might be, and maybe that's okay. If you look back at the U.S., look up Skokie, Illinois, if you haven't heard of it, and the Nazis. So the actual Nazis, not like people liberals say all the Donald Trump supporters are, but actual brown shirt, Nazi wearing uniformed members of the Nazi Party wanted to march through Skokie, Illinois, a very Jewish community. And you know what? Back in the day, I think this was in the 60s, I think, the ACL, American Civil Liberties Union, defended their right to do it because it was important to defend speech that's offensive. Because speech that's not offensive doesn't need protection. But the problem is who decides what's offensive, and the ACLU back in those days knew that, and knew that, hey, yeah, the Nazis marching through Illinois is bad, it's horrendous, but if we don't let them do it, then what else is the government not going to let us do in the future? So it's a slippery slope. Now today, the ACLU is full of very liberal people, and the liberals today are different from the liberals in the 50s and 60s. They would definitely not let the marches go through Skokie at the ACLU. They would not defend that. They don't defend conservative causes anymore because they're all woke. But that's a whole different topic for another day. But again, so I think this is a good first step. I don't know if I'll go back to Facebook and post political commentary again because I just don't trust them anymore, and I have other platforms to go on. All right, everyone. I just wanted to get this story out there so people would know this was a thing. Thanks. Bye.